The Biden administration is announcing a new rule aimed at closing what's known as the gun show loophole. The administration says it's cracking down on the definition of what it means to be engaged in the business of selling firearms, whether it's online, at a gun show, or at a brick-and-mortar store. The rule now authorizes the ATF to require anyone selling guns to commercially, that is, to register and do background checks on gun sales. The White House says this will prevent people from falsely claiming that guns are a part of a personal collection and exempt from running a background check on a buyer. The director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, Steve Dettelbach, is here now with more on that. Steve, thanks for your time today. You know, the Attorney General is calling this one of the most significant gun regulations in decades. How will these keep guns out of the wrong hands?
Well, thanks for having me. So fundamentally, this is about a large group of people who are just simply not complying with the law. The law says that if you're engaged in the business of dealing firearms, you know, your motivation is profit, that you have to have a license. Licensed firearms dealers then are required to do a whole bunch of things to protect the public. They run background checks before they sell firearms. They sell firearms with serial numbers so that cops can trace guns used in murders and shootings. They cooperate with ATF when they identify firearms trafficking. So what do you do if you can't pass a background check, if you're a felon? If for some reason you're not allowed to have a gun under law, what do? You go to the black market. And we've seen over the last years that amount of firearms that's being funneled to killers and gang members and felons through that black market, through people who are dealing firearms without a license, has grown and grown and grown. So what we're doing here today is we're saying in as plain terms that under Congress's law, the law that Congress passed, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, that if you need a license because you're dealing firearms for profit, engaging in that business, if you need a license, you need a license. There never has been, and there is not some exception based on where you're sitting when you're breaking the law or what social media platform you use when you're breaking the law. The law is the law, and everybody has to comply. And by the way, it's totally unfair to the thousands and thousands of law-abiding firearms dealers out there who are obeying the law, who are running background checks, that this black market aimed at arming felons that are hurting people is out there competing with them and not playing by the same rules as Congress set.
Now, Steve, the NRA says background checks don't stop criminals from getting guns. So what's your response to that and to critics who claim that federal regulations like this violate the Second Amendment?
This doesn't violate the Second Amendment. It specifically says in black and white in the provision that this doesn't implicate anybody's Second Amendment rights. And it also is true that the many, many, many licensed dealers who are currently obeying the law, right, they're out there in tens of thousands of numbers available for people to make lawful purchases. The notion that background checks doesn't stop anybody from getting firearms is totally contrary to the data. Since the background check has been implemented in the 90s, millions and millions of firearm sales have been stopped by the running of background checks. And let me say one other thing. Every time somebody proposes a way, every time Congress passes a law or considers a law that's going to save lives, I hear people say, well, this won't solve the whole problem. Well, that's not the right test to be using. There are only two tests we should be using. One, is it legal? And two, is it saving lives? No one thing is going to resolve the problem of firearm violence that we have. At ATF, I lead a group of men and women who are literally running toward gunfire, risking their own lives to protect strangers from violent crime. These are brave people. They deserve our respect, and we need to use all the tools we can to support them in that effort of protecting Americans.
All right. ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.